Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so it's like
Looks like we're ready to record. Oh, here's Adriana. So add her as interpreter. All right. Cool. All right. So we'll go live in.
Okay, is Emiliano here?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, they're all there.
Okay.
Okay, y'all, we're almost ready.
Sorry, you said we're gonna go live when?
In about a minute.
In about a minute, okay.
I'll wait till you come back. I don't want to start without you. Okay, so I'm gonna go live. On Facebook. All right. And I'll start letting people in. And so then Jocelyn, I think you could take over managing that. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Liz Huck. I am the Executive Director for Oakland Rising, and you are joining us for our Redistricting Town Hall. And today we're going to be doing some mapping. We're going over some data that we did not include last week in our town hall last week. And you can also, we'll be putting here in the chat is a blog post. You can go to oaklandrising.org and go find on our blog, if you're watching on Facebook Live now, you can go to our blog and catch up on what we went over last week. There's Chinese interpretation and Spanish interpretation, as well as ASL interpretation happening, as you can see on the screen. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can go ahead and click on the language preference. We'll try to go over all of that slowly so that our interpreters can keep up. There's also closed captioning happening. So if you need closed captioning, please select at the bottom of your button. And I was told last week in full transparency that I did not offer a description and provide full access for those who might be on the phone or folks who do not have sight and cannot see the slides and cannot see the visuals on their screen. So I'm going to describe myself. I'm an East Asian woman with blue glasses and freckles, and I have brown earrings on and a green hat with a gray turtleneck. And behind me is a bunch of different, very colorful posters, like movement posters in my background. And then to my left, our ASL interpreter is a Black man with a shaved head and a beard, and he's wearing a purple long sleeve shirt. Then he has some jewelry on his wrists, and he has jewelry on his ears as well. I hope that's a good description and you agree with that description. So thank you all again for joining us. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you all. I'm gonna go over some data Give me a second while I go to share my screen. Okay. I always like to sing, you all, and then I wonder if the interpreters sing with me. And there's some interpreters that I've worked with before, and they always tell me no, they don't sing. Just to let you know, I did sing. Okay, so this is the redistricting town hall for today. And I'm just gonna go over a few things today. If you are following along and want to, be live tweeting, or if you're just sharing out to folks that you're joining us today, please hashtag Oakland Rising, Oakland Redistricting, and Fair Redistricting as some hashtags that you might use on your social media. And we want to welcome you all. And I want you to begin to think today as we move towards some mapping and considering how we'll do the mapping. And Elena Serrano from Eastside Arts Alliance will be joining us in a minute to do that with me. But I want you to, in the chat, if you can, in the chat, if you want to share what district and neighborhood you live in right now. And then where's your neighborhood park? And is the school you or your kids attend in the same district that you live in? So you could go ahead and put that in the chat and let us know where you live and where are you coming from today. And I will say that the interpreter said that they could not understand my lyrics, so they did not sing them, apparently. So we have folks from Anika here from District 6. And there's someone at Oakland Redistricts here. D2, Donna's from D2. So let us know. D1, Bushrod neighborhood. Hi, John. I think you joined last week. Stephanie Good is from D5. Oh, one of our redistricting commissioners. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us today. And we'd love to hear from you too, maybe a bit later if you want to join to talk about what's been going on in the redistricting commission. We'd love to have you. We have District 5, Glenview. We have folks John goes to Bushrod Park and Dover Park that are nearby. So I'm going to share a couple slides here, and I received these slides a little late today, so I wasn't able to put up any graphics or any wording on here, so I'll just have to let you know what they are. So last week we had somebody who joined our town hall ask about where are voters living and in Oakland. And so we broke it down by race. So we can see here, this is the people of color, what we would consider people of color in Oakland. And as you can see here, this is the current district maps. So you can see that majority of our folks of color who identify as folks of color live in the flatlands. And this is the demarcation. Usually we would consider maybe the 580 or MacArthur Boulevard as a good marker for that. So, and for those who cannot see, on my screen, I'm showing a map of Oakland, and with bold black lines, there are the various 7 different districts. There are also small little boxes that are sort of embedded inside of these lines and on the map to show different neighborhoods and districts or precincts. And you'll see a gradation of different colors from white to very, very light green to a very dark green. And the dark green meaning more percentage of those types of voters. So as we can see here, this is the POC voters, the people of color voters. And it's very dark green in what now we consider deep east in the flatlands. And these mainly in D5, D6, and D7. And I'm pointing to those with my pointer. And then we go here to where are Black voters, and we could see that we have a pretty strong population here in D3. And then we have a very strong population of Black voters in D6 and D7. And again, this map is the same map that I was showing before. It just changed the coloring of the map to show where the darker colors of the Black voters are percentage-wise in Oakland. And then if we look here, we're looking at the Latinx voters. We see that they are more concentrated in D5, parts of D6, and then D7. And I'm gonna go to the next one. So we have, this is API voters, and it's fairly light across most of the city, but you can see that where we would consider Chinatown is a high concentration. In D2, there's another concentration of them of API voters in San Antonio and East Lake area. And then in a part of Melrose District, down at the bottom of D5, which is an interesting thing. But you can also see too that there is a 30 to 40% range that sort of populate also in the hills as well, and parts of West Oakland. So this is where our white voters are though. So it's kind of flipped from our POC voters, where the majority of our white voters live in the hills, and then also to much of parts of D3, and then in lower parts here at the bottom as well. And this is a big change over the years that we have seen happening in Oakland. This is a largely due to gentrification. But this actually used to be very much, I'm going to go back to the Black voter, that this actually used to be the majority of the flatlands here all the way across were all Black. And this you can see has changed in terms of a demographic change in Oakland. And folks who are on our Zoom with us today, like feel free to drop anything in the chat. And then if there's any chat happening at Facebook Live, Jocelyn, if you don't mind also dropping them here so we could see those questions. And this was also a request from somebody last week that was asking about age of voters and about young voters more specifically, because this is often the group of folks who are a part of the less likely voters in Oakland. And this is ages 18 through 35. And we could see here that also is very similar across it's pretty evenly split across the city in the flatlands, all the way through D1 through D3, D2. Every single district is sort of touched by this age group. So this is also the part of the unlikely voters. Someone put in the chat, living in Oakland is too expensive. It is. We've seen that change over the years, and the favoring of developers in Oakland really by the city and the administration to allow that to happen really has shifted the city a lot. This is an interesting map. This is a map that's overlaid by Plan B. That was a proposed Plan B from last week that we went over, and then Plan D. But I'm just going to show you this one because we'll go over a little bit more about the different proposed plans. but as you can see here, this is actually how people voted in Oakland on Proposition 21, which was last year, a state proposition that was about adding local control for rent control. So right now we have, we do have rent control laws here in Oakland, but they're also prevented from being very expansive because of state laws. So Prop 21 would have changed that. And as you could see here, and I'm going to describe the map for folks who cannot see it. It is a map of Oakland and larger parts further out of, the East Bay. And you can see here that, and then the coloring on the mapping goes from red, orange, yellow, pink, or beige, to light blue, like an aqua blue, to a lighter blue, a darker blue, and a very dark blue. The red being 0 to 20%, and then the dark blue being 80 to 100%. And we can see here on our map that nowhere did we find that anybody in Oakland voted 80 to 100%, but the majority of the flatlands voted at least 60 to 80% on Prop 21. Whereas in the hills, we saw that it was either 40% and below. And then if you go outside of Oakland, moving into the East Bay, over the hills, you'll see that we in fact had folks vote 0 to 30%, or 40% on Prop 21. So it kind of shows a little bit in terms of, we wanted to show a little bit in terms of how there's a difference between how folks vote in the hills and how the folks vote in the flatlands. And as you can see, this proposition did not win. It failed at the state level. There are many different criticisms about that, but I think just in terms of looking at, the question in the chat was, how did the proposition go? And I said that the proposition did not pass last year. And there's a lot of reasons why it didn't pass, but we wanted to just show you how people voted in order to see maybe where people's opinions are based on location in terms of their favorability towards renters. So in Oakland, as you can see, the majority of folks that kind of live in the flats, there's a lot more renters than there are homeowners. This has changed over the years. But even if there are homeowners here, they're more favorable to renters than they are for those in the hills. So if we're thinking about the ways that the city is sort of proposed maps as they are standing for B and D, and you can go to the Redistricting Commission website to see those proposed maps. You can see here that then if we stayed with the current district maps where, it's kind of all the hills cut into each of the districts, at least 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, that they would then be proposing policy that really that they're voting against the renters in the flatlands. So I just really wanted to thank you for adding that, Stephanie. They put in the chat the Oakland redistricting map proposal links, as well as some of the census data showing the population changes. This is data that is also a collection of data from voting, and then also integrate some census data and other data points that are not included in some of the redistricting maps. Okay, So I wanted to, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm actually going to invite Elena Serrano to join me. Hi, Elena.
Hello, Liz.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm good.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us who you are and then give us a little description so that folks who cannot see you know who you are?
Okay. I am Elena Serrano. I'm part of a collective that runs the East Side Cultural Center on International and 23rd, which we still call, for lack of a better term, a third world cultural center, because we're in that part of Oakland that really has Southeast Asian, Latinx, Indigenous, and African American communities kind of side by side. So the cultural center works to bring those communities together and look for common struggles and common victories so we can kind of share our power. And I want to just say I appreciate that Prop 21 map, even though it lost statewide, it really shows the power in Oakland that we have, you know, for those kind of measures. So I am, my description here is I'm an older African-American woman with lots of gray hair that's crazy and happy and smiling in my bedroom / office tonight.
Thank you for that. Elena is also working through Eastside Arts Alliance with the outreach coordinator through the commission. So you have been going to obviously all the commission meetings and also going to different workshops that are some may be hosted by the commission and then hosted by community as well, correct?
Correct. And really, you know, because we're cultural workers and really believe in the power of bringing folks together around culture and building power that way, really looking at, you know, opportunities like Dia de los Muertos in the Fruitvale, Acoma Market in Deep East Oakland, these kind of cultural gatherings to be able to, you know, bring all this information. And the commissioners have been coming out to those events. And we're just trying to make sure that folks that haven't known they can participate at this level, because this is the first time around redistricting that people get to decide, residents of Oakland, that they get their voices weighed in. And there's so many different ways that can happen. So we're trying to let folks know of all those ways.
I appreciate that. And so Elena shared with me a video. So I'm gonna share that video and let me get my screen going. So I'm going to share this video. It is not translated, I believe. And I will try my best afterwards to give you all a description of it. And my apologies to the interpreters. We had not anticipated doing this video tonight, but I'm hoping it will be okay. It's a 2-minute video.
Oakland, California, a city with deep roots in the fight for social justice, and where you can celebrate art and cultures from across the globe. The strength, power, and beauty of Oakland comes from its community, and you have a chance to help shape Oakland's future. Every 10 years after the US Census, Oakland goes through a redistricting process where new council boundaries are drawn. These boundaries tell us who we can vote for in city council and school board elections, as well as where our kids can attend school. 2021 is the first year that these boundaries will be drawn by the people of Oakland, and there are 4 main ways you can get involved. First, by completing a survey online or in person at a community event. Second, by sharing your thoughts at a public hearing meeting, accessible via Zoom or phone. Third, by sharing a written comment with the commission via email at rluna@oaklandca.gov. And fourth, by proposing your own boundaries or identifying your community of interest through the online mapping tool, District R. Communities of interest are communities that share something in common, from culture to economic or political interest. Your voice matters. There are different political outcomes that come with drawing boundaries around or through a community. And the Redistricting Commission needs to see your community, however you define it, to inform where these lines are drawn. Learn more about how you can get involved by visiting www.oaklandca.gov/redistricting.
That was a beautiful video.
You did. Can I say two things about the video?
Of course. Can I just ask you one thing though, Elena? We do have simultaneous interpreting happening. So you just want to slow your pace down a little bit,
Okay.
breathe between sentences.
Okay. One is, I love the video too. And we also made a poster, and I'm just going to make a pitch to everyone for any artists that want to be involved in these type of processes. That's what Eastside Arts Alliance is about, is artists that want to kind of use their art. You know, we were lucky that one of the volunteers said, oh, I make animation, and she just like made that amazingly.
Nice.
So that's always good. And then two, we are correcting that about OUSD, about the school district, that this doesn't decide where your kids go to school, because you can, you know, kind of apply to any school, but it does determine who your school representative is going to be.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for the question, John. In the chat, he asked, how do city council boundaries determine where your kids attend school? And the district lines are the same for city council as they are for Oakland Unified School District school board directors. And your other question, John, is what does the data show about how the district should be drawn? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Before I get there, I wanted to just go over a couple things. One is that there is going to be new maps that are being proposed tomorrow. So there were originally 4 maps, A, B, C, and D, in October that were proposed. And at that meeting, the commissioners eliminated A and C for proposals so that they didn't have to like try to vote on all 4, and maybe it was confusing. And definitely oftentimes we see that that can just add to confusion. So they wanted to pare it down a little bit more. And then maps B and D, which are the maps that we reviewed last week, that were provided for community input, were during that time from October till now, people have continued to give community input. They have added their maps, they've added their stories, they've sent emails, and that collection of information and data was then put into the proposed maps. And so there are new changes to those maps, and they're updating them. So they should be ready for the commission meeting tomorrow on the 10th. Last week, the commissioners came back and and brought proposal A back to the table. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that had happened until today. So I'm not able to provide too much more additional information, but I think it's okay, because tomorrow, when the commission goes over the new maps that are informed by the public's input, that we're going to just see those lines change anyways. So we might as well wait till tomorrow before we make those big changes. So John, I don't want to go out and say like this proposed map is better than that proposed map at this point, because in terms of our analysis of it, because we're not quite sure what the proposed maps will look like. I see Stephanie has her hand up, so I'm gonna let Stephanie come off mute. to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent. So my name's Stephanie Good. I'm one of the redistricting commissioners. I am a long-term resident of District 5 in Jingletown, 21 years. I just wanted to clarify regarding the availability of the maps. All maps that have been proposed so far are linked on the website. So anyone can view all maps that have been proposed so far, and there are currently 4. We have 4 new maps that are being developed. They might not be available for tomorrow's meeting. We certainly hope they will be. So that is a possibility that we might not have them. But as soon as they are available, they will be published on the website. So I wanted to make that clear to everybody. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you for adding that information. I hope that they are. And also, Stephanie, if you want to chime in here as well, is that my understanding is that last week they voted to push the date, and hearing the public really wanting to have more input on the proposed maps and hearing that. And I love to hear when elected commissioners and board members and our electeds and our representatives really listening to the public. So I really appreciate you as a commissioner participating in the process, but also hearing that the public really wants to continue to give input. So can you provide clarification on what the actual vote day will be, and when's the last input day from public? If you can offer that, Stephanie, we would appreciate it.
Sure thing. So we did add additional public meetings to our schedule. We've been meeting for over a year, once a month. We added additional public hearings. Those are our full meetings where we take public testimony that is recorded and official input for the map proposals. So the city charter mandates that the final citywide district map is December 31st. Of 2021. We cannot change that date without a new voter initiative. So our hard deadline is December 31st. We currently have scheduled meetings on December, I think it's 13th and December 30th. So on that December 13th meeting date, we intend to have the last proposed maps under consideration available for review and comment. And then when we meet on December 30th, that is when we adopt the one final map. So December 30th is the currently scheduled date for adopting the final map.
Great. So just to confirm, those dates we do already have from the October, they were added meetings. So we have December 1st, December 6th, December 8th, and now we've added December 13th and December 30th. Is that correct?
I'll have to check. I don't have our schedule right in front of me. It is, of course, on our website, and I can put the link in the chat. I think we have each week between now and December 30th, alternating Monday, Wednesday, public hearings, what we call public hearings. And that's when we take the public testimony. So our next one is tomorrow at 5 p.m. The other dates are workshop dates. So we have a couple Saturday workshop dates and a couple of Monday and Tuesday dates. So like I said, I don't have the schedule right in front of me. Those December meeting dates might be a little bit off. I know that the 8th was our original last scheduled date, and the 13th and 30th were added during our October 13th meeting.
Thank you. So somebody put in here, can you fix the translation for November? I will do that, and when I get an opportunity to do that, I appreciate that. And so I have on the screen here a timeline of those meeting dates. For November, the meeting dates are November 1st, November 10th, and November 15th. These are full commission days, commission days so that all the commissioners or majority of the commissioners will be there to take public comment and input. And then there's workshop days, which are, I see it says October 21st in Spanish. So I apologize for that. But for the workshop days, we have, these are days that you can meet with not all the commissioners, but a handful of commissioners who doesn't necessarily create quorum, but they will work with you on your maps and help you to provide the input. So that will happen in November, on November 6th, November 13th, November 16th, and November 30th. And then in December, we have meetings on, again, thank you, Stephanie, for providing the additional information for December 1st, December 6th, December 8th, December 13th, and December 30th. There'll be one workshop day in December on December 4th. And you can go again to the website to check that out. So one of the things that Elena and I had talked about was like, a lot of people come to Oakland Rising and they go to these events and they're like, well, you tell me kind of what's the most important thing. And I know that was a question that that came up last night at another meeting that was held in at another public town hall type thing. Where was it at, Elena? Was it at
It was the Allen Temple Baptist Church / NAACP.
Oh, nice. And so
Mhm.
those types of questions came up, right? Around like, what is the kind of map that really is going to help Oakland? And so I'm going to just go back here and just show this map again of the POC voters. Just give me one more second while I get to that. And I'm going to share this map so that you all could take a look at it. Because in general, the way that folks are voting in Oakland is that we have what we call in the industry of civic engagement, high propensity voters, people who are more likely to vote and have voted in more than 2 elections, in 2 recent elections. So you can see up here that this is generally what's happening in the hills. And I put up on, for folks who cannot see the slide, I put up a map that we shared earlier of POC voters, people of color voters in Oakland. And we see that in the flatlands, we have a lot more folks of color voting than in the hills. And that generally, it is from the hills that we have had our last few, if not, I don't know, the last 5, I think, mayors came out of District 4 from the hills. And we could see that with the current district maps, that then this would allow for the hills to have influence and create policy and vote on city council seats across the city. And we have a large population of voters in the flatlands who are more marginalized. We have less likely voters in the flatlands. This is due to lots of different reasons, right? I mean, to just be very frank, shit's hard sometimes for poor folks. Just getting somewhere to vote, to be able to get the information to vote, access to voting, access to information about voting. There's additional hurdles that, in terms of equitable access to democracy, is not readily available to people in the flats. And this is something that happens across the country, right? It's not unique to Oakland. It's unique in terms of the geography and how it's laid out, but generally POC voters as well as low-income voters are generally marginalized, and it's less equitable for their access to democracy. And so when we think about the mayoral race, when we see the maps that come out that show that maybe, actually, I'm going to go back to one of the proposed maps as an example. Let me get to that. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so if we're looking at map B, the proposed map B, that, and again, tomorrow, hopefully we're gonna see new proposed maps with updated proposed maps. But as it stands, we can see here that there is a large district that might get formed in the hills. It excludes them from the districts in the flats. So this, if you think about it, will help to allow the flatlands to be able to determine more clearly who will end up sitting and representing them on city council, as well as in OUSD. But if we look at this map and think about the role that high propensity voters, more likely voters in the hills, voting on our mayoral race and our rep at large race on city council, that we'll see that that this one major district could be the hindrance to that. Oftentimes then what happens as a result of that, what results with that is that then we have people who then cater to the hills in order to win an election. And Oakland Rising, we do most of, if not all our work in the flatlands. So our canvassing, our phone banking, our texting program, our partner organizations like Causa Justa Just Cause, like Ella Baker Center, like Mujeres Unidas y Activas, like Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice, like eBase, East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economy, like Asian Pacific Environmental Network, and many of our ally organizations that we work with. I want to also mention Parent Voices Oakland, that all of these organizations do most of their work, if not all, in the flatlands. And Oakland Rising is one of the only voter guides that go out specifically to the flatlands. And so we think that if this map favors our city council vote in favor, that the political representation will be more fair. But with this map, given that high propensity voters come from the hills, this might cause us to think about that the mayoral seat will always come from a more neoliberal, if not conservative, mayor who favors development, who favors corporations over the needs of working class and poor folks. So I think that this is an important distinction to make. I've also heard in different commission meetings, as well as, just talking to folks around the town, and maybe Elena, you've heard this as well at these meetings, they don't want this big district from the hills because it creates a split in our city. It just continues to create the divide between the hills and the flatlands. And I think that oftentimes there is a fear of that split, and to be really real, it's there, y'all. It's not going anywhere. And having a district that potentially maps that allow us to build power and voice of the flatlands politically and electorally for our city council could be a very strong one, right? We don't have to have our city council members then constantly worried about losing their the progressive voice on the council because we have a more conservative voice from the hills dictating where they're how they vote and who ends up on council and who ends up on our school districts, on the Board of Education in our school district, who tend to favor charter schools, who tend corporate charters, and I want to be really clear about that, and about developers in our town. So, you know, I'll leave that for you all to decide what could potentially be a better map. Is it more important for city council to have the progressive vote, or is it more important for us to have a mayor that is more progressive, potentially progressive, and representing from the flatlands? I think we're starting to look towards 2022, and as we see candidates coming out, we're really keen to see how and who we can, as Oakland Rising, continue to co-govern with on progressive policies and budgets that will favor and not favor in a way that excludes anybody, but that creates budgets and policies that lift up every Oaklander, every single person who lives and resides, and that they get to thrive too, that we all thrive together. And so for me, I feel like, and this is, you know, part of my opinion, take it or leave it, but I feel like it would not harm Oakland to have one district, Hill District, because it allows us to have a very strong city council. And I think that we potentially will begin to see, if we build more political power in Oakland with those of the folks who live in the flatlands, we're going to see more mayoral candidates that come from the flatlands and who, you know, born and raised here, or lived here long enough to know what it's like to live in the flats. And we don't have that, and have not had that in Oakland for quite a long time. So I'm gonna stop there with all of that. Does anybody have any questions? You could add them to the chat. One of the things that Elena and I were gonna do today, though, y'all, was to actually do the mapping together using these tools. And if you're kind of like a data geek like me, I love these tools. They're so fun. Why'd you roll your eyes, Elena?
Not a data geek, but I'm sure I have a constituency who will follow me.
My teenage child when you rolled your eyes like that, like, oh my God. I just want to be really transparent. I actually used to work at Eastside Arts Alliance. And so I love Eastside Arts. My kids grew up in Eastside Arts. They, you know, they went to preschool next to Eastside Arts. And so I also, when the Eastside Arts Cultural Center opened, where in its current location, I actually performed with, or I got to be at the performance of the first performance in that space with Tohi Lee. It was so beautiful, and it's such a gorgeous space, and it's such I'm so glad that we're doing this together, Elena. I love being able to do this with you. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so if, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start with this page, actually. Give me just 1 second, I promise. Okay, here is the Redistricting Commission website. There's all kinds of stuff. You can see the meetings and the notes and documents. And here at the top, it kind of is a good, quick place that you can go to some of these maps. There's the draft district map proposals. You can check that out. And then you can go, you can see the testimony that was offered at the last meeting on November 10th and November 13th. And then you can also go here and provide input. So I'm looking at the Redistricting Commission website. There's a banner sort of towards the top that is providing this information. Because we want to hear from you, provide input on our online survey, or draw and submit your own district map. So I'm gonna click on provide input.
And just, I put the website in the chat, so folks can do this with us if they would like.
Yes, of course, thank you. And so you can see here, this is a survey to provide input to Redistricting Commission, and there's instructions here. You can add your information. It starts with where you reside, ask for your email, your name. How do you define your community of interest? What are questions you and feedback you have? And then it's pretty simple, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go back and no. Okay, so then we're gonna go here to draw and submit. So I'm gonna click that. So dun, 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 takes you to this page. It's a little daunting and scary, but it won't be by the time we're done. So you can see here, this is actually a public gallery towards the bottom of different maps that other people have made. And so you can click on them and take a look at what you see. You can start drawing here, and there is a guide page. If you click on this guide page, then this comes up, tells you how to use the tool. But I'm going to give you instruction on how to do that, so we don't have to worry about that. So here we are at this page here, and there's two ways to do this, two mapping tools. One is you create your own map, blank slate. And it's going to pop up here. I'm gonna click on it so you can see. Look at that. Technology doesn't want to work with me. Yay. It's not even Mercury in retrograde, y'all. Okay, well, maybe I need to close these things. Okay, here we go. It's coming up. Yay. Okay, so this is the map, Elena, that is of Oakland right now. This is the one where you can create your own map of the city and do a proposal. So maybe you went off of what I talked about in terms of our analysis of it, and you decided that you wanted to create your own map. And what you can do here is, so this little pointer here is to help you move the map around. If you go here to the paintbrush, this is where you can then start painting and coloring in the district that you want. So this little toggle here is how big or wide you want your paintbrush to be as you're painting the city of lines. These are the different colors that you'll create for the 7 different districts in the city. You can start anywhere, doesn't matter. So we have here a blue color. Tell me where you want this paintbrush to go, Elena.
Let's start going from west to east.
Okay, cool. So do you want me to tell me when to stop coloring?
And I think what's cool about this is it's going to show you the population. And the mandate is that they need to be the equal numbers of people. And I forgot what the exact number is, but it's where that line is there, I think.
Exactly. And so this is, we can say, is that this line tells us the equal distribution of population across the city. And so we're trying to get within 5% of this line in any given district, right? So I've gotten to about, you know, does that sound right? That took us pretty far. If you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I don't like that. Then you take the eraser and you erase.
And I just want to remember that some of the original questions that Liz asked in the beginning, like where's your park, you know, to make sure you have a park, make sure you have a cultural hub, make sure you have an economic engine, you know, kind of when you're thinking about these districts. You know, making sure you're not breaking folks up. I mean, there was a question in one meeting about the lake, you know, and right now the lake is 2 different city council district, city council people who are pretty much aligned in their views on the lake, but you know, this is going to last for 10 years. So we have to remember that too and figure out what seems best.
Exactly. So one other thing that I want to point out, so this is sort of based on population. Then we have here data layers that you can then look at population by race. You can also look by population by voting population, right? Voting age. So if we looked at here and we show voter population in the region, this is where all our voters are. And then we went to say you wanted to look more specifically around Black voters in Oakland. Then you could see then maybe there's a shift here in how you might want to paint your district lines. So maybe I want to go to District 2. This is District 1 area right now. But maybe I want to do something like that. So you want to toggle back and forth between population and data layers of tabs. And obviously for those who cannot make maps digitally with this mapping tool, you can also submit an email or call in to the commission meeting to provide a story about where your community lies. And so again, reminder about what communities of interest are. So Elena, what's a community of interest?
It's a challenging concept, you know, but it is, you know, I do think it is. I mean, but I'll just give some concrete examples of communities of interest that we're a part of. For instance, the Black Cultural Zone in Deep East Oakland, and kind of making sure that the needs and interests of the Black Cultural Zone are, you know, you have to decide this, if it's better to have multiple city council people representing you or just one, you know, and where Eastside is, for example, in the San Antonio district, we used to just have one city council person, in the district line, which was drawn then 10 years ago by the city council, moved it so the district line between District 2 and 5 was kind of right in the middle of the San Antonio. You know, so it's like maybe it's better to kind of bring that community of interest back together. So, you know, and I just want to say, when that happened, the 2 council people, District 2 and District 5 at the time, 10 years ago, said, oh, now you get 2 people paying attention to your interests. You know, like they were kind of selling it as a plus. But in fact, you know, if we were not really a high voting, high donor district, they're really not paying attention to neither, you know.
And that's the key part, right? Is that they say they represent that, but then they're not actually paying attention to certain voters, because they might not be donors or they might not be voters, like active voters.
I mean, there is some kind of campaign finance reform that needs to be a part of this, so that they're not so reliant on donors to win.
Well, there is some work that's happening around that, and we'll share in the future more about that. So thank you for that little plug. But so this is something you can continue to do. You just find a color and then you just paint away at the city. The one thing that you do have to know is that you cannot do what I just did. You can't just be like, okay, this is District 5. It has to be like, they have to kind of clump together. They have to be near each other. So you can go, this map goes really detailed, down, down, down. So you can find your street and see where your park is and where you think these lines should be drawn according to this. So this map is for, you wanted to create a map, like your own proposed map of the redistricting lines. I'm gonna go to the other one, which is actually helpful because these are important. Like we might come up with our own map after some thoughts about it. We might think, oh, actually, so what I want to do is we want to create completely different district lines, and the Oakland Rising comes up with that. And then we might use this tool to do that. Or we might also, based off of the proposed map, current proposed maps, what we might want to do is just ensure that within those proposed maps, that communities of interest are seen and heard and incorporated. So I'll click on this one and hopefully it'll pop up quickly. Hey, look at that, it does. Okay, so this one is similar in terms of like data layers that we had in the other one. This is a little bit more breakdown. You can see these pieces move as we build out the community of interest. Okay, so I'm realizing, Elena, that we should have you doing this.
No. I'm good as the
Okay, so you tell me then where you want me to create a map of a community of interest.
Well, full disclosure, I tried to submit my own, which was that San Antonio map, but the paintbrush tool for me was a little unwieldy, you know, and I honestly, I'm just seeing now as you're doing it that you can really zoom in really close so you get it precise.
Yeah.
So when I did it, you know, and that was mostly in just the kind of interests of the San Antonio neighborhood and not having 23rd Avenue split neighborhood. And I know the same thing is happening with residents in up on Park, that they don't want Park Boulevard to separate the neighborhood. So my main interest was like kind of getting that in there. But then I think I'm sure I've created a district that's way too large, you know, so those are the things to consider when you're, I guess, when you're creating these communities of interest.
So actually you shouldn't worry about that when it comes to the community of interest, because that community of interest will just be informing the district lines. So you just want to show them, because you're like, they don't know what that community of interest is for you. And it could be about geography. So Elena's talking about geography of San Antonio. So maybe what would you consider that geography?
Well, when I was looking at it, I mean, and this is what folks should consider. I said, okay, San Antonio Park has to be in it. 23rd Avenue has to be in it. You know, probably the 580 is the kind of cutoff for the San Antonio district. You know, if we were really kind of focus on kind of distinct community needs are different below and above the 580.
So would you say that then 14th Avenue would be that?
Or maybe, and then here's the other thing. It was like the idea of the estuary and Jack London and, you know, kind of that as the economic engine being, you know, maybe you know, kind of instead of a district that follows the 880, the San Antonio district also has a portion of the estuary, you know, so I that's why I feel like I created too big of a place. By the time I said the park up to the 580, all the way down to the estuary, 23rd Avenue, you know, so I think that was kind of how I looked at that. And
Would
that,
you say then Fruitvale would be the cutoff, or would you
no,
say?
probably a little bit before. What it used to be was, I think, 27th or wherever Montgomery Ward used to be, or where all those.
Oh my God, that was so long ago.
Okay, I know, it was a long time ago.
No, but I think that for folks who are newer to Oakland might not know about, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to 27th on this one,
And then all the way to the water.
all the way to the water through Jingletown. You think Jingletown's part of San
I
Antonio?
don't know. No, maybe not. I mean, I don't think Jingletown is its own district, but I guess it's like, is Jingletown?
It's its own community of interest.
Yeah, but yes, which you wouldn't want to split it up between the Fruitvale and the San Antonio district, but it's kind of, you know, up for grabs, whichever one it seems like it fits.
Okay, so we're just gonna say that to here. Well, this is a negotiation between you and I, Elena.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I want to leave Jingletown to itself.
That's
because
fine.
It is super distinct on its own, right?
But I just really still want to make sure you get the shoreline. I think that's really
All the way
important.
down here.
Yeah, I think that the San Antonio district should go like from the park, San Antonio Park, to the water.
Okay, hold on. So here.
Yeah, it seems like it's not wanting you to do that.
Well, it's doing the
In its own thing.
yeah, well, because these are precinct lines. These are some distinct precinct lines, and not precinct lines, but just like geographic lines. So, even if I cut this out.
And then, you know, I think what was useful, what would have been helpful to me just as a Luddite doing this, is if as I'm drawing that, I can also see like, how does this differ from what the existing is, you know, and you can do it by kind of going back and forth, but that was a little wonky for me.
That is a little wonky. You do have to toggle in order to see, but I think that when you are doing this map where you're trying to create your own map on your own from scratch, I mean, to me, it seems like you just don't even worry about the lines. Start from base 0 and build according to what you think that could look like. And this one, in terms of community of interest, definitely, I feel like don't worry about it at all, because you just want to be clear to the commission, this is my community of interest. So you could do multiples of these. So you can see here, if you go to this little blue dot in the corner and you touch the plus sign, another color will appear. So then you can create another one. So I'm going to do one here for Jingletown, and they might overlap too, and that's fine, right?
So when you're doing that, just to be clear, you're not saying Jingletown is its own district. You're just saying Jingletown is a community of interest. Don't split this up.
Yeah, don't split this up,
Mhm.
right? Because that's a possibility that
Yeah.
it can get split down the middle and then get represented by 2 different districts. So then here too, then I might say, oh yeah, and also I think that Brooklyn Basin at this point is its own thing. So oh, that's not us, sorry. But I might then consider this possibly its own district or its own community of interest as well. They overlap, but you want to also possibly say that because, y'all, Brooklyn Basin is up and coming, y'all. There's all kinds of stuff happening there all the time.
A question came up, and you know, I probably should know this answer, but I don't. As how property taxes fit into this equation?
Ooh, you know what? I think I will have to come back on that one. I'm not prepared today to answer that question, and I don't want to give everybody some false information and then have to, or inaccurate, not false, but inaccurate information. So I'll come back with that next week. And so so after you do that though, right, you do your nice little communities of interest, 1 or 2 or 5 or however many you want to. You also can look at what it looks like by population if you wanted to. So you can see here in our San Antonio district, we have, I forgot to mention this. If you click on coalition builder, coalition populations, then you have to click on who do you want to be part of. So I'm going to click on Hispanic, Black, and Asian as a way to see the POC population in any community of interest that I'm creating. So in this San Antonio one that we did together, Elena, you can see that it's a really strong POC community. So that feels to me like pretty strong. If you also then wanted to break it down more clearly and see Black population here, then you'll see a little change here. It gets lighter from the dark colors, but you can see that there's a good strong population of Black folks that live right around San Antonio Park. There's different pockets of Black folks who live in San Antonio in this community of interest that we wanted to see. So that's also one thing that you all might want to do as you're doing this. So you can see here, we have a pretty strong Asian population in San Antonio. And right off of this, just so that you all know, I'm going to zoom in so you can see. Okay. Right here in this there's different churches, and right next to San Antonio Park is Roosevelt Middle School. So for me, this feels like a really strong community of interest because not only do you have the park, but you have Roosevelt Middle School here. And then you also have different restaurants that are on East 14th Street, or for folks who don't know, International. So that these are businesses that people frequent in this neighborhood. So,
And just thinking about what's a strength, you know, for us at Eastside, the strength of this district is its kind of really high percentage of Black, Asian, and Latinx. You know, like that's kind of the place where we're going to work these things out right there in that neighborhood, you know, and those common goods. But you know, that's where this kind of, you know, that's a major strength. But is it more of a major strength to have, you know, wealthier people or an economic engine, or, you know, how do you measure what's strong and what's not?
that's right. And so let's just say that these are the 3 that we decided on. You can also create your own. I also might include, I'm going to do my neighborhood because this is geographic for me. Actually, I'm going to say, I'm going to go with a very different community of interest, which is probably a little bit more broader, which is unlikely voters, right? So I might do that. So I'm going to add another layer here. We'll have green for that. So I'm going to be like, all right, unlikely voters in Oakland for me is a community. Maybe disenfranchised voters. We know that for me, I know that in Brookfield and parts around the Oakland Coliseum and in Sobrante Park, that these are communities to me of interest because these are neighborhoods and places where most folks are no one's talking to them, or not a lot of folks are talking to them. So I might do that across this, through Melrose, Elmhurst, parts of this, up to MacArthur Boulevard. And I might do that as another community of interest that spans the city. So it's going to take me a while to get there. Oh, wait, maybe I need to just make my brush bigger to do this faster. For example, I might take out the lake actually. I want to include Chinatown. So maybe I get a little more nuanced in here. For example, as an example. So once you can do communities of interest that are about geography and about resources that are specific to a place, but it can also be an alignment with political interests or for other categories that span the city in larger swaths. So that could be for consideration. So once you've done that, you've painted, then you press save. And then you, well, this got saved as a plan. I thought there was gonna be an actual, like, you can put up your plan. So this will be, no, I don't want to share. So this will be what we could call Oakland Rising and East Side Arts as a draft. We might not publish this at the end and make it public or have it be fully saved. But that I wanted to show folks in it as an example of how to do that. And I can go back and get rid of that later. But I'm going to stop there with the mapping tool so that, you know, folks can try it out on your own. Next week, what we'll do is we'll actually have folks, we'll do some breakout rooms. So if you wanted this week, you know, test it out on your own at home and use that tool on your own, then you feel free to do so. And then you want to come back here next week. If you remember, folks from Asian Law Caucus joined us. They're going to host some rooms, and we'd love to, if Stephanie wants to come back, or if any of the other commissioners want to come back and host a breakout room, we could have individual folks join us, and then you can get some kind of one-on-one time on creating your own map. The other thing I wanted to be really clear is you don't actually have to use this digital tool at all. You can just grab a piece of paper and draw it out, and then send that in. Take a picture of that and send that in an email. Or you can write a story, type it out and say, you can handwrite it too, send a picture of that in, and just whatever shape or form works for you. And I want to encourage folks where English is not your first language, to do it in your own language and put the auspices on the city to get the translation done, right? It's not your duty to get the translation done because that doesn't create accessibility. It's on the city to create accessibility. So create it in your own language and get the city to translate it and offer it to the commissioners. Oh, so Stephanie says they would be great to participate in a breakout room. And that they'll share it out at the public meeting tomorrow. So again, there's a public meeting tomorrow. Elena, you look like you want to say something.
I just wanted to say I'm just gonna post right now in the chat that there's a calendar of events, and we'll keep adding to that. But at these in-person events are these very cool placemats that the city has made, and you can draw with a marker, which is really my speed, the Sharpie thing, and submit these as well. And there's a couple of things listed now, but we're going to keep adding those kind of outreach events. Will be at farmers markets and different things in person.
Awesome, that's amazing. And I need to get a stack of those maps because we're going to be having a mutual aid event, and I'm going to share that information here again. So on November 21st, Ella Baker Center with Oakland Rising is hosting a mutual aid event. We'll be passing out a lot of supplies that folks need to get through the winter, and then different things that people just need every day, like diapers and wipes and hand sanitizer and tampons and menstrual pads, and that will be at Restore Oakland, which is 34th and East 14th, our international, where Ella Baker Center is housed with Caso Justa Just Cause in the back parking lot. So you can come there. We'll have hot food, we'll have hot plates, and we'll have a DJ and some music, and we'll be doing mapping there. So those physical maps that Elena shared with us, we'll have them there, and then you can draw, learn a little bit more in person about redistricting, and get to talk to some of Oakland Rising's partner organizations like that I mentioned earlier. Then you can meet them and learn how you can plug in to the work with us, and join their organization and the work that they're doing specifically in Oakland. So come out to that.
What time is that, Liz?
Oh, I'm sorry. The time is from 11 to 4 o'clock.
11 to 4. Okay, and also you don't have to make a map if you like one of the already submitted maps, and you can comment on those as well. And just say,
Exactly.
"Hey, this one works for me."
That's right. That's right. You can also, just say, I like this map, but this little piece, I want to make sure that my community of interest is included in that.
Mhm.
So you can continue to follow us, Oakland Rising, on our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Twitter, and go to our website. You can sign up at our website for a newsletter. It will give you all kinds of information and links that please, you can share that out with folks. And this will help to continue to inform the process. And so we'll see you next week, 6 to 7:30. Hopefully, Elena, you might join us again. And then other folks, and hopefully some of the commissioners will also join us then, so you can talk to them directly and let them know what kind of mapping you would like to see. Thank you, Stephanie. She wrote in the chat, thank you for this incredibly helpful event. No, thank you for joining us today and adding all of the different links in the chat. But you can go to the website, the Redistricting Commission. If you just Google Redistricting Commission Oakland, it will come up. I also want to add that you can RSVP with us for next week's mapping event. It's also in the chat, but you can go to oaklandrising.org/COI3. oaklandrising.org/COI3. And I also want to just mention that although we're talking about Oakland's redistricting process, Alameda County is also going through a redistricting process, and rest in peace to Wilma Chan, but her seat is now open, and they have 60 days after her passing to think about how they'll appoint somebody to that seat. And my understanding is that when they pass the redistricting, do the redistricting lines and the new maps for Alameda County, that they will be finalized by December 15th. And it is not a public commission like we do in Oakland. It is done by the Board of Supervisors. So if you'd like to get in on that, be sure to go to Alameda County Redistricting. There's also ways that you can submit very similar to the same mapping in Alameda County. There is also statewide redistricting that's happening, and I suggest you follow bayrising.org and Bay Rising on the work that they're also participating in. as well as the Black Census and Redistricting Hub, which we are a partner of and have held our own COI sessions with them. But there is redistricting that's happening at the state assembly level. So if you're concerned about those as well, we might see some very, very dramatic shifts, maybe not in Oakland, but in Alameda County for sure, at the state level. So tap into all of those, tap into Alameda County, tap into Oakland, and the Oakland Redistricting Commission. And we're really proud as Oakland Rising to have been a part of the ballot measure that passed to have the Redistricting Commission established. And so we hope that you will continue to participate and join us as we shape our city and build political power for the most marginalized voices. And Elena has one more thing to say.
There is a commission meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
Put that in the chat so you can see and meet all of your commissioners and participate in the process.
Yes, thank you. And how can they follow Eastside, Elena?
Eastside through our website. I'll put that in the chat too. Eastside Arts Alliance work.
And
Yes.
there's Eastside Arts Alliance on Facebook and on Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So find Eastside Arts Alliance, Eastside Cultural Center. Is it Eastside Arts Alliance?
Eastside Arts Alliance. I put it in the chat right now.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. Appreciate our interpreters. I appreciate our closed captioners. And thank you for coming out. Bye. Have a good night.